Okay, hello, greetings, Earthlings. This is Jacoby in Ivano-Frankivsk, Ukraine, and it is February 25th, 2023, one day after the 1 year anniversary of the full-scale invasion of Russia. And we thought we would do a year in review video, just like a picture catalog, just go through the year and highlight our main events we went through. It was one of the craziest years of my life, so many just transitions and adjustments and uh, being in a country at war, humanitarian aid, all that stuff. So basically, this is probably going to be a little bit of a long video. I'll try to keep it moving, but I understand if people don't have time to sit through one. I don't know how long it's going to be, an hour probably at least, maybe shorter, we'll see, of pictures and explanations of those pictures. So I thought it would be a good idea. We have many people that uh, support us financially and prayerfully for many years, and it's not often we get fully caught up. I used to try to every January call everybody. This year was way too busy for something like that. Like to go back to the States about every 5 years or so at minimum. But last time I had to make a very quick trip there. I was only able to see a few people. So if you send money to this ministry, and it's not just an emotional thing, it's something you believe in and you want to be a part of, that this is a good way to just get filled in on what we're doing and know what your money's being used towards and how you can be praying for us. If you don't support us but want to learn more about us, this is a perfect way to do that. Um, we've met, I've met different people online over the years, and some of them end up supporting us financially, and really they don't know me personally very well. There's only a few of you, a handful, but if you really want to know more about us, or you'd like to share about our ministry with friends, help us network, anything like that, this is a great way to get filled in. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so this is a picture of Lyra's brother, Ilusha. This was, I don't know, a week, maybe two, before the full-scale invasion began. He was in the military academy. It was required for all young Ukrainian boys to go through a year of military training. So he was there for, I believe it was a few months before the full-scale invasion began, and this was us going there at the military academy to visit him. This was the night before the full-scale invasion, when we had actually watched Putin on the news. Before this, we were preparing emergency bags. We'd actually bought an SUV just in case we had to leave in a hurry. It was our first time owning a car in Ukraine. And we had made preparations to leave in case we had to, but our initial plan was to stay in Odessa and help people as long as we could. We had no idea what this potential war could look like. So we'd always say, well, we're going to play it one day at a time by ear. So we lived in this flat for over 5 years, and I didn't have any really comfortable chairs. We had this really uncomfortable couch. We gave that couch away. And in Ukraine, usually when you rent a flat, it comes with the furniture. So if it's not great furniture, you're often just stuck with that furniture. But we had lived there over 5 years and made a deal with our landlady that we could give the couch away and replace it, but we would have to leave that there when we left. We weren't planning to leave anytime soon. So finally I got two comfortable recliners and a couch, and they were all it took like 6 weeks before they delivered them, and then we had them for just a few days before the full-scale invasion started. So anyways, at 5 a.m. the next morning, we woke up to news about bombs in several cities all over Ukraine. And we had a couple friends who were trying to get on a train to leave the country, and we decided, okay, let's leave. It wasn't necessarily a permanent decision. It was kind of like, let's give them a ride, and we'll leave with our dogs, and then we'll play it by ear and go one day at a time and decide if we should return or not, see how things are playing out in Moldova. So this was us in line. We were in this line for over 30 hours. We had, two ladies, friends in the back seat, our two dogs, and us in a very small SUV, just packed to the brim with stuff. So it was a very, very tiring, uncomfortable trip. But Luna was comfortable because she has a very nice pillow And this is when we finally got there late at night. We were very blessed because the pastor there, who we'd never met, our friend in the car with us, knew him. They put us up in his parents' home, who were living or on vacation in Dubai. So it was a very nice, very comfortable place. And so here's Lyra getting caught up on some rest. And this is downstairs in the kitchen with Ludmila and Galia, who rode with us. And then it was a few days later, Galia's sister Zoya had come over the border with a couple people, and I went and picked them up and gave them a ride. And as I understand, Zoya is actually living in the United States now. She went there somehow through Mexico. Picture of Lyra and Galia. So after we had been in Chisinau, Moldova for a few days, Galia found work translating for medics for a large humanitarian organization. And then like 2 days later, I think it was, Lyra joined her. These are kids of the pastor and his wife, and they just live like half a block down from this house we were in, and they would bring their kids over to get some dog therapy, if you will. They love to come and just pet the dogs. And my dogs love attention. But when you give them, like, smother them in too much attention, they can be a little bit uncomfortable. So these are good friends of ours, also in Chisinau, Vasily and his wife, and they had actually visited Odessa like a week before the full-scale invasion and were thinking about moving there. So we had dinner with them and talked about our lives and ministry and everything, and we had just began getting to know them. So here we are having lunch with them, and then these are two other girls that part of the same denomination our church is in Odessa. We've done a little bit of ministry with them in the past. I'm not sure where they are now, but I know they were in Germany for a time, if I remember correctly. But this is a prayer meeting at the church, a ladies' prayer meeting. The first week we were there, a lot of people were praying a lot and praying hard for Ukraine in those days. So after we got set up in the place to stay there was a lot of work to do. Everybody was trying to get help getting out of Ukraine or to get to some other countries. So we were just, doing everything we could to help anybody that needed help in our sphere of influence or anyone that reached out. And so we came to this church, and they had 2 Sunday school rooms downstairs, but there was a ton of refugees coming through, and they didn't have beds in there. So I volunteered to buy bunk beds for the church, and here's a couple guys putting them together. These are what they look like once they're assembled. Some kids hanging out. And so I think we got 5 bunk beds in each room. So we bought 10 bunk beds, and they definitely got used with the different refugees that were coming through the church. This was a guy I heard needed a ride to the border because his wife and son, he was already in Moldova, his wife and son were coming through in their car, and they were completely exhausted. She could no longer drive. So I drove him from Chisinau to the border so he could meet his family there. And then while I was there at the border, there was a bunch of people just standing looking for a bus, looking for a ride to get into the city, which was I can't remember, hour and a half, 2-hour drive. So I found these 2 small families, and I gave them a ride into the city, and they actually ended up staying at the church for, close to a week, I think. This is at the pastor's house. Lyra ended up hanging out there a lot. She became very, very close friends with Dasha and Ina. Ina is Victor's wife, and these 2 teenagers here were displaced from Lviv. Their parents were still in Lviv, but they were friends of Pastor Victor, and they were staying with him for a while. And this is, I made a bunch of Mexican food, and I just treated some people at the church. Yuri and Edgar. Yuri was a deacon at the church. Edgar was an elder. Edgar actually has a really cool story. He's from the Donbass in Ukraine. He used to be a criminal, and then later in life he was a policeman. So he has lots of interesting stories about the mafia there, the corruption there, and what he believes is really going on there. Super guy. Yuri's a super guy as well. Both just servants, want to help in any way they can. And so they were very resourceful, very helpful to us in many ways. Um, and they were just serving the refugees that were coming through a lot. Unfortunately, this was us having dinner at Edgar's house. Um, like it was, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago. He died of a heart attack in his sleep, which is tragic because, here's his wife, here's his daughter, his son is right here, and these are great kids. But from what I know from Victor, they're being well taken care of. These are people from our church that I gave a ride, another family from our church that we were helping out there. They were only there for a couple nights. This is them as well. And Lita was helping them figure out some paperwork, and we bought them a few small items for the road. Now this is where Lita and Galia were translating. They had tons of refugees staying in this stadium. Many of them seemed to be foreigners, like Arabs from Turkey and places like that. They had a lot of crazy stories getting out of Ukraine. Some of them were literally shot at near the border. But Lita was there translating for the medics, and then she wound up getting asked to go in to work in the office, and she actually worked there almost all year long. She just stopped this December, and she's probably going to reapply there for a program where she gets flown out to countries in need for like 2 or 3 months at a time. Now this was, I felt, the gas prices were going crazy. It was very hard in Ukraine to find gas. And so I thought, before I get too crazy driving around helping people, I need to make sure I have reserves, because if I don't have gas reserves and ends up, I don't know what's going to happen. No way to have gas. I'm going to be stuck like Chuck. So it took a little bit of work to find these old oil cans and to clean them out with chemicals. But this is Edgar's son. He was determined to help me, and Edgar actually let me store this fuel on his property, which was outside of the city. And then I came across these 3 gas cans, which were like so hard to find. I had to pay $80 each for them. Now I think you can get them for $40 or $50 each. But at the time they were in low supply and high demand. So these are just some pictures of different people that came through the church and stayed there. And some of them I met, some of them I didn't. Some of them Lita met while I was in the States, because I ended up leaving. These are the ones I gave a ride from the border. We brought them supplies like coffee, tea, juices, and other things on a few different occasions. Lita's here helping the lady with figure out some paperwork. So I don't remember how many of these pictures there are, but we'll just kind of jump through them. And there was also another building which was outside of the city that they used for but a rehab center, where they had 2 rooms with bunk beds where guys could stay, but they ended up using that for refugees as well, and we'll go there in a second. So like I said, Lita ended up hanging out with them a lot. We were going through basically trauma, trying to deal with being suddenly uprooted from our home, and just, I don't know if I can call it stress, but you just kind of felt dizzy all the time, 24 hours a day, trying to sleep and focus and prioritize what needs to be done now. And you're in Moldova and everything's different. All the languages in the stores are part Russian, part Romanian. And you're trying to, so this culture shock, you're going through this dizziness and at the same time trying to focus just so you can make dinner. So while we were there, I began researching for other churches in Reformed churches in different cities around Ukraine, specifically Ivano-Frankivsk. I was interested because you'll see a picture later. A friend of mine had bought a small piece of property in the Carpathian Mountains near the Chermosh River, and Ivano-Frankivsk is like an hour or so drive away from there. It's the closest big city. So I emailed this Pastor Igor, and we began chatting with him on Skype. This is Sensanich, who was living with him at the time because both of their wives were out of the country. and they were ministering to refugees. They had a whole bunch of them staying in their church at the time. And, well, long story short, we go to their church now. We do a lot of ministry together, and two of my best friends. Now, this is a group of American missionaries that began going to Odessa and other places to do street evangelism and other types of ministry. And this is Lyra's stepdad, but basically I just helped them initially get into Ukraine by connecting them to Victor at the church. So they ended up, I never had an opportunity to be there and do ministry with them, but they ended up coming back and forth, I don't know how many times, but it was a lot of times. They were very serious, very committed, and brought a lot of humanitarian aid and blessed and encouraged a lot of Christians. And so yeah, and a couple of them came and helped actually with our teenage summer camp we did later on. So my visit to the States, what happened was we started receiving some donations for humanitarian aid, and I was buying some stuff, but because of the war, we couldn't ship it over through any of the usual channels that we knew about. All the flights were shut down. The shipping companies weren't doing anything for the first few months of the full-scale invasion. So the only way to get stuff over was people just to start flying it over in airplanes. And I mean, people were coming. Sometimes I saw people with tens and tens of bags. So I had a friend who he does a lot of missions, a lot of evangelism, and he's been all over the world. And I thought, this is a guy, he'd be the guy for me to ask to send this stuff to his house for him to package it up and fly it over. Long story short, he had business complications, end up being unreliable and disorganized, and I was thinking, I have to find someone else to do this. But I thought, well, if somebody flies the stuff over here and they fly back, I might as well just fly there and take care of it and then fly it back here. When I started researching plane tickets, the cheapest ticket from Moldova was actually to Los Angeles. So I thought, okay, I can fly to Los Angeles, go up the West Coast, quickly see some people I haven't seen in over 5 years, and then pop into Minnesota, get that stuff, and fly back over. So these are some good friends of mine in Southern California area. We're having dinner there. These are some friends in Southern Oregon. Davey here on the left, I'd known since I was like 18 years old. And he's actually a pastor now. This is, they've always been like a second family to me, and this is Pastor Luis and his wife Penny, and they pastor at Calvary Chapel Church in Medford. That's in Spanish and in English. So, and this is their son Tano, who's another really super great guy and good friend of mine. And this is me going through Home Depot, buying some totes and boxes and supplies for camp. So initially, my idea was, I was seeing so many internally displaced and refugees that I thought I wanted to buy a couple shipping containers, go up. My friend had another piece of property, my business partner that I said we own the land with, he has another bigger piece, and I wanted to put shipping containers there and invite refugees that want to work and basically build like a communal living area and a garden, and begin housing internally displaced people. So I started buying some tools and a toolbox, and I basically was preparing for this. And God ended up changing my plans, but the things I was buying for that ended up working out perfectly for what we did. This is my good friend Max. He lives in the Portland area. He's actually a Ukrainian American who I met 6 years ago when we were in the States for a year. And so he was helping me ship stuff to his house and help me box it up and getting it shipped over to Ukraine. This is Rick. He was, let me see, it was 2005, 2004 through 2006. We did a lot of street evangelizing together in the Medford and Ashland area. He has a really amazing family, godly people with good theology and good political views. So they're awesome. They're in the Vancouver area. This is C.R. Wiley. He's a Reformed pastor who I just reached out to and asked if he wanted to have coffee because I know of him from his podcast and from a couple of his books. He has a couple really great books out there, one on Tom Bombadil and one on the family, so check those out. This is Tori. He's actually on the board of our organization. He's an old friend from Bible college, and his wife had a serious condition where she had to have her eyes covered and ears covered for years. She couldn't see. Loud noises would give her pain, and this year, I don't know exactly what happened, but God healed her. So, I mean, I don't know the details of the whole process, but when we got a report of it, it seemed like it was an overnight miracle that suddenly she was able to take these things off of her eyes, and we'd been praying for her for years, and many people were praying for her, so that was awesome. These are two friends in West Seattle that from my days when I went to Mars Hill Church many years ago, and a pastor, Zach Anderson. He's out on Bainbridge Island. So I got to go see him and his awesome family and had a couple of lunches that were ridiculous expensive because prices in Seattle are just absolutely nuts. Here, I think we'd have like lunch for two guys, just a normal lunch, like a couple tacos and a beer or something like this. It'd be like $90. So I was like, wow, I'm going back to Ukraine. So now this was my buddy in Minnesota who was receiving all of my stuff. Here he has one of the CBR masks on that I bought in case of a chemical attack or nuclear attack. And here he's just showing me his patriotic Second Amendment getup. These are the totes I packed with humanitarian aid and some baseball equipment that was donated and other things. This was a family that I met actually through Facebook because I was posting some things trying to explain my perspective on the war in Ukraine and the politics and everything. And, you know, people were saying all Ukraine are Nazis and that Putin is a model of Christianity and just a lot of crazy stuff. So I was just trying to explain the viewpoint from somebody who actually lives in Ukraine for many years. I told someone the other day that just came to Ukraine as a missionary. Said I was in Ukraine before it was cool. So anyways, I connected with them online and they just shared a lot of my viewpoints and regarding that. So long story short, I got the short stick from United Airlines. I bought my ticket through, I think it was Polish Airlines out of Chicago, but I had to fly from Minneapolis to Chicago, and I had prepaid for all these 10 totes for the plane, and it wasn't in their system. So I didn't get on the plane. Long story short, I ended up having to fly to Chicago and just get on the Polish plane, and it cost me a ridiculous amount to bring the rental car there that I thought Polish Airlines would reimburse me for. Polish Airlines reimbursed me for nothing except for the fact that I no longer flew out of Minneapolis and I no longer flew to Chisinau. I went to Warsaw instead. So all the trouble I went through there, they did nothing about it. And this was about 8 months waiting for an answer. I only got like $400 back from them. So anyways, if I had more bandwidth, I would have bothered them more about it. But sometimes you got to let stuff go. While I was in the States, my wife was making friends, building relationships in Moldova, and this was me in Warsaw at a hotel. A friend of mine connected me with this American guy who had bought this ambulance in Germany and was driving it into Ukraine to donate it. He's not a believer, but he was a pretty decent guy. We had a many long, deep conversations about lots of stuff. What happened was we were in line for 36 hours to get over the border. We finally got to the line. They told him he didn't have one of the right papers he needed. So I wound up having to get out of the ambulance and walk across the border. But once you crossed on the Polish side, you still had to carry all this stuff. Like it was at least a kilometer uphill to the Ukrainian crossing. By the grace of God, he came back, he parked the ambulance and came through and helped me carry it. And then I found these three, these are like first responders from the States who had come to Ukraine to do some research and see how they might be able to help. And they helped me carry all this stuff. And then my buddy Kostya, he met me at the border, and here we're loading up his car. So, oh, this picture's in the wrong place. This was us in the line for 36 hours. It was so bad because Ukraine passed a law that removed all custom tax on imported cars. I don't know, it was for like 1 month or something. So there was just tons of cars being donated and brought across the border. So this line was just crazy. So Kostya took me up to this village in Carpathia, and we stayed the night in this other man's nice cabin up there with this amazing view. It was very close to his properties and to our common property. And this was my first time even seeing it since we bought it, because I just gave him half the money when we lived in Odessa, and I hadn't yet had a chance to even come and see the land. I'd only seen pictures. But we got an amazing, amazing deal. Now, this picture right here is important to me because this was actually the moment when God gave me the idea for the camp for the teenagers. So this is Losha. He's a professional hiking guide in the Carpathian Mountains, him and his wife. And actually in Switzerland and other places in the world, they do a lot of hiking tours. So he wanted to do a hike for like internally displaced teenagers as a ministry. And I said, now, I had bought all this camping equipment because I wanted to build this commune up there. But once I saw the land, his big piece of land is on this huge hill, and I saw it and I realized we could do it here, but it's not what I had pictured. It would be difficult to build and live. The hike up there was tough, and the road is terrible, so you can't just drive up there. It just would have been a tough way for a large group of people to live, especially if they had kids and stuff. And additionally, most of the internally displaced refugees, the numbers were going down because they were coming from eastern Ukraine to western Ukraine and only staying for a week or two and then moving on to other countries. Most of them were trying to get to Canada, to the States, to other European countries. So there were fewer and fewer and fewer internally displaced people. And I thought, why don't we do a camp in the Carpathians for internally displaced teenagers? And I'm always trying to think big. I was probably thinking too big. I wanted to do 7 camps. So anyways, long story short, we ended up doing 1 camp and then helping our church with their camp. So we're involved in those 2. But then when I did this camp, I realized, wow, I think, after all these years of organizing events, doing English clubs, being involved in camps, I think I found what God wants me to do. One of the things that I think God wants me to do. So I'm planning in the right season to found an LLC and crowdfund for basically what I want to do is buy a piece of land in the mountains and build a more permanent camp that you can use as a business, and then that supports the ministry. So you could book multiple camps for churches and retreats and stuff throughout the year there. So after being there and seeing that property, I had to drive back to Moldova to get my wife. Actually what I did was I stopped through to see her, and then, I'm getting ahead of myself. While I was there, there was some of the refugee kids staying at that rehab center that was outside the city, and I thought, these kids are, they were forced to leave their home in a hurry. They don't have a lot of things with them. They don't have a lot of toys. To help them and their parents, to keep them busy, I bought them some books and some toys and some pens and even a trampoline. And I went out there and visited them, and they were all super grateful. It was nice to see their attitudes were amazing, and they're just happy, cheerful kids. Here they are jumping on the trampoline that we bought. And this is all, the bunk beds we bought, the trampoline, it's all being used for the ministry at the church there. This is some groceries we picked up. And then I had an idea to translate the Gospel of John into Ukrainian with some notes and with some other things to read, like some encouraging hymns and other excerpts that I was going to put into a booklet. This would have been a lot of work, but I realized I didn't have anything to give these people other than something in Russian, and everyone was very anti-Russian language now. Everyone wanted to speak Ukrainian. But we came across this guy who had some Ukrainian Gospels of John. So my project got put on hold. This is the cover that I had designed for it. But, for the time being, this was much more expedient for us just to take all these for free and begin handing them out to people. So I went back to Odessa. I was there for 3 nights, sleeping with the window cracked, hearing, like missiles being intercepted in the distance. And I started packing up our flat in a hurry because when we left, we thought we might not ever see any of this stuff again. We had a lot of stuff, things we've accumulated for over 10 years, just personal things, books, like technology equipment for recording videos and things, and ministry stuff. So it was hectic, but thank God that ministry team that I had told you about that was going into Odessa doing street evangelism, they came over to help. And then Pastor Valeri, and this is a young man who, before the full-scale invasion started, him and I were meeting. I had met him years before, and I basically had some money on the side I'd made in crypto that I was going to begin investing in some small business ventures, and he was going to be my manager. So we had been meeting and talking that through and planning it, and we were ready to go. But we said, let's put everything on pause because we don't know what Russia's going to do. So now all that's out the window. So, Lyra's father, Lyra's sister-in-law now, who's now married to her brother, Angel from our church, her stepfather, and then all these other people are boom, 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 from the team that was going through. Now this was after Odessa, so we put everything on this truck. This truck started driving the long way to the house that we had found just outside of Ivano-Frankivsk. I went back to Chisinau, picked up Lyra and the dogs, and this picture was taken just shortly after we crossed the border. Lyra was actually had tears of joy because she was back in Ukraine again. It'd been about 6 weeks, I think, maybe more, maybe 2 months. This was, this picture should have been before that picture, but, oh no, this is actually, so we left Moldova, we got situated in our forest house here, but then we had to drive back to Odessa again because we had a trailer, just a small trailer that we had purchased a few months before the full-scale invasion, but they hadn't finished it and delivered it yet. And then when the war started, they weren't able to deliver anything. So we were considered blessed that they sent it at all, but they sent it to Odessa where we originally purchased it. So we had to go get that and finalize some stuff there. While we're in Chisinau, we stopped and saw our friend Dima, very good and old friend of mine for many years. He's from Odessa, but his wife had family in Moldova, so we stopped and had coffee. So we get into Odessa and we get this trailer and it's all in boxes and the instructions are terrible and they don't tell you the right tools you need. So Angel came and helped me and Lyda's dad came and helped me and we finally figured it out. We got this thing put together, but then the topper they sent us was old, dirty, used, and didn't fit. It wasn't even long enough. So we ended up writing them. So this company, I can't read it. I think it's called Lev for Lion. Don't buy anything from them. Lyda would call them once a week about this, getting the right topper. I cleaned this really well, folded it up nicely, mailed it back to them, waiting for the right one. Lyda called them like once a week, and every time she did, they would pretend like they didn't know what issue she was talking about, and she had to re-explain it. Finally, we just let it go. So while there, Lyda got to see her brother, and we dropped him off a couple things. This was his fiance at the time. This military vest and this IFAC kit. Lyda with her mother and her father and her grandma. And then this is back in Ivano-Frankivsk. So it was very hard for us. All the rent prices were going crazy. All the rentals were full because of internally displaced people. And we had dogs, which made it even harder. So we found this sauna house, which was, I can't remember, $500 or $600 a month. but we ended up finding a couple of friends who split the rent with us, and we lived there for what, 3 months, I think. But it was so gross, cobwebs everywhere, black grime on the floors. It was just bad, and I had to. So it was like basically 6 to 8 weeks of work before you finally feel like situated in there, and then it's only a couple more weeks before you leave again. This is Costa. He's some of the stuff that we shipped over had finally arrived, a bunch of sleeping bags and other camping equipment. Um, and then this was our new friends in Frankivsk, who, when we came, they were very warm, very hospitable, and just showed us around. This is a restaurant where we had lunch with them. The first day we met many of these people. This was a Lutheran pastor from Kiev, who at the time had been in Frankivsk for a while. And so this restaurant is a Ukrainian restaurant in Frankivsk, and it's really cool during the summer months because, you can sit outside, order some shashlik. And so a lot of the pastors in this denomination meet there from time to time. This is Pastor Attila from Hungary, Pastor Bogomil from Poland, and this is Volodya from village an hour south of here, Podhaychiki. So here this is the first time I had met Bogomil. We're actually debating about whether Russian propaganda or American propaganda is worse. So I'm making the case for American propaganda being worse. This is Losha and his wife, the hiking guides who ended up helping us out with our camp. And this is our friends who stayed with us there in the house, in the forest house for a couple months. This is Pastor Sergey and his brother Mark, and their friend. I think he's an elder at their church. But they came over. We had lunch with them, and they helped us. They had a large van they were using, driving all the way to Kherson, which is a very long drive, with a van full of humanitarian aid like once a week, and helping people evacuate and things like that. They were all over it, doing a great job. And they came over and just helped me move some of my stuff into a storage garage in the city because we couldn't keep it all at that house. And those days with gas, that just added to all the craziness and busyness because you're always trying to find gas. A lot of the gas stations would just be closed, and you had to actually use the gas apps to figure out who had gas when and then try to get there before they ran out of gas. So there was all kinds of logistical problems with that. But I spent time building up since I left that gas reserves in Moldova. I bought a couple of beer kegs that I filled up with some gasoline, and then Pastor Igor donated me a couple small 60-gallon barrels as well. So I went through this whole new process of getting more gas reserves and putting fuel stabilizer in it, so just in case of an emergency. This was me delivering some compression bandages, some Tylenol, some ibuprofen, and some tourniquets, and a full first responder EMT kit. Then I brought these guys some stuff, just this cup for that, because they were making these long drives to Kharkiv. So when we were stuck in the car for these long hours, I thought it would be really great if I had a way to make coffee or tea right here in my car. So that's what this is. It heats up water by just plugging it into your cigarette lighter. So I gave him one of those. And this solar power bank, you can also just put it on the dash of your car and the sun will power it up. So you can keep your phones going. I think I gave them a few of those. I don't remember. And then a bag of Gospels of John. This was a church in Dnipropetrovsk who was helping literally hundreds of refugees coming through. It's kind of a larger church. When I worked as a fisherman in Alaska on our salmon boat, we always used this little Honda generator, and I knew that it was reliable, that it worked really well. So I bought one of these. I bought two of these out of Romania, and we kept one for our camp and for emergency situations, and we donated one to this church. And later on, at first I wondered, was this the best purchase? But it's like when you don't know what's going to happen, you just kind of want to be ready for anything. And such a good idea because, the past few months we've been living with the power shut off like half the day or more sometimes, especially in Dnipropetrovsk, more often than it is here where we're living. So here in Frankivsk, we'd have power off and on like every 2 or 4 hours, and in cities that are further east, it's an even worse situation. Here's some more power banks and some. I don't remember. This I think is a special forces team that I donated some power banks and some trench knives to. Potassium iodide in case of a nuclear attack. I donated a couple walkie-talkies to a chaplain and his wife who were driving a truck delivering a lot of humanitarian aid. And we bought 5 other walkie-talkies. And there was somebody else I gave a couple to, I can't remember. But then we kept 5 for our camping. And thank God we did, because when they went on a hike, they really needed it. A large group with a bunch of teenagers to watch and make sure everybody's okay. And also we had a situation one night that was a little bit crazy that we had to manage, and the walkie-talkies made it 50 times easier. I couldn't imagine trying to deal with some of the things without those walkie-talkies, because we were in a large camp area. To be able to call the other leaders if they're over in their tent or something, it's very, very helpful. Then this was a day trip. The church we're a part of has this ministry for kids. It's a day center, and they just do all kinds of stuff. Teach English, do arts and crafts, have week-long camps. Here was a hike to the forest where they actually, I think they were shooting with some air guns, and Lida joined them for this. Then we couldn't stay in that forest house forever. It was just a summer thing, and we had a very short time before we had to actually find a flat before the camps in the summer would start. So, like I said, with dogs it was super hard, but we found this guy who rented us this flat. For this, it's like, what is this, 80 square meters, plus a huge garage down below us, which I needed for storage. It's like $400 a month. And when we came in here, a lot of the furniture was hideous. The walls were super ugly. I mean, this wall looks okay, but the other ones were really weird and dirty. The curtains, we took those down. Anyways, we just made it livable. This wall behind me, I sponge painted myself. And we just painted basically and changed the furniture around, and got us some used furniture, and it's much more comfortable. And there was just a stench. It stunk super bad. So we cleaned the heck out of it, and we hired some kids. We paid them like 600 or 500 hryvnias a day. Maybe it was more. We were paying them like 800 hryvnias a day, which is like $20, which is really good pay actually for young people in Ukraine, to come and help us paint. And then the pastor and his wife came one day and just helped us. And they've been like huge servants and just helped us in several ways since we got here. So this is at the church, and then this was a planning meeting for their camp. And so they had brought me and showed me their location where they do their camp, and we ended up doing our camp at the same location. So this was basically, we'd just been getting to know them. It was our first time we were going to actually do some ministry together and see how well we work together in ministry and things like that. So then we had to move again out of the forest house. This was us packing up. It was really cool out there because we were completely surrounded by trees. The one downside was right next door is another forest house, and they would rent it out to people that want to come and party. And so some nights they were just loud and obnoxious, but there was tons of bugs, and there were these cool dormice that actually lived in a hole in the house. And when we hung out on the back porch at night, they would come out, and we got to have our own little mini zoo. This was every Sunday. Well, not every Sunday, but most Sundays after church, we all have a meal together. And so every week a different person volunteers. This week I brought chili and some potatoes for everybody. And back then, some of these people I'm pointing out were actually from the Kiev area, had come with the Lutheran pastor because their building had literally just been bombed and destroyed. And so they stayed in Frankivsk for several months, and just more recently they finally went back to the Kiev area. This was another time when I brought some barbecue pork sliders and coleslaw. Some other people we met that had come to Frankivsk were with SS Ha, which is basically InterVarsity, but in Ukraine. And they invited us to come and help them at a place they rent out with a few different churches to use for ministry. And they were doing an English club. So I came out and did a presentation. I was talking about the United States and about Portland and stuff. So then Pastor Igor had a bunch of these pallets from all humanitarian aid they'd have donated. So I went to their office, loaded these up in my trailer. These were some heavy suckers to carry all by yourself. And I brought them to the campsite, and I made a gaga ball pit. And I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. I didn't know if the kids would even like gaga ball, but it ended up being a huge hit. So it was well worth all the work. So here I am, I'm loaded up. I'm basically going to their camp. We're not doing our camp yet. And then here we are. This is on location at the campsite. I taught some people how to play spike ball. Now, spike ball didn't catch on as well as the gaga ball pit did. Once you taught the kids how to play gaga ball, it was over. They would just, when they had free time, they would often just go play. A friend we knew from years ago, a missionary girl named Abby, she used to do ministry in Odessa. Now she's in Chernivtsi. And she donated a whole bunch, like 100 of these English-Ukrainian Bibles for us. And we gave one of those to each of the kids who were at our summer camp. This is us getting ready for our summer camp. These three guys all came from Odessa. Well, he's actually from Reni, but I think he might live in Odessa now. My old friend Artyom's cousin, an angel from our church. They came over. It's about a 10-hour drive from Odessa to Ivano-Frankivsk. It's even longer on the train. And they were paid stewards of the camp. I wanted 3 or 4 guys at the camp who weren't just there on volunteer basis, who were being paid and had specific responsibilities. So they were being paid like 600 hryvnias a day, which is like $15 a day, which is slightly over average daily pay for Ukrainians, like entry-level pay job. Now this is the bus ride heading out to the camp. I was already there setting up for a couple days, and Lera was in charge of the logistics of getting everyone to the bus and on the bus and to the camp. So when they started arriving at the camp, we started issuing out sleeping bags and tents to those who needed. So there was a lot to figure out, who had stuff, who didn't have stuff, who lived where, how were they getting there. So just that alone was a monumental feat. So then this is one of the tents we had. We had 6 tents like this with slight varieties in them, but these are all basically like, you can get like 8 kids in there. So here we are, we're beginning the camp. On the first day we start some icebreakers. We're throwing a pig around and a rubber chicken and some balls and getting to know each other's names. Then we had this whole series of games. I don't have them all in pictures, I have them on video, but they were hilarious. We had all these different icebreaker games with shoes. So here people had to throw their shoes, put these bags on their head that you can't see through, and then go find their shoes. This was me explaining how to use the toilet. This was one of our first evening sessions. Pastor Volodya there is doing the talk. This was worship time. And we made this swinging bench. We tied it up to the trees, and we put up a couple different hammocks. This one over here on the side, and this one just areas for the kids to hang out. Actually, this one we ended up putting a tarp over. I think it was that one, or there might have been even another one. And we put a big tarp over it in a V shape, and we took turns, different people sleeping in there at night to basically be security on the camp while everyone was up in their tents. These were discussion groups, so after every talk, the next day in the morning, we would have a discussion time about the talk the evening before. This was to kind of refresh what was said in their minds and get to know the kids more and, have opportunities to talk with them and get them to open up more and more through the week, speak into their lives. And then these are our 3 volunteers who volunteered to help Anna, the main cook, in the kitchen. And then there was one other guy, Sasha, but he was basically with the steward group, but he was helping the kitchen a lot. And then we had 6 different teams. So at our camp, we had like a competition where throughout the week, each team had 2 team leaders, or this one has actually 3. Sometimes they'd have 3, sometimes they'd have 2. If someone had to leave early, in one situation, somebody had 1. But they had a point system where if they won different games or won a tournament, first, second, third place would get points, and through the week their team is trying to win. And we had prizes for first, second, and third place. And the cool thing was, this actually kind of happened. I was trying to do it something like this. Well, I wasn't sure if it was going to work out, but basically through the week, the total points they'd accumulated from the games, if they also did their memory verses and kept their worksheets from their discussion time, they could basically, it could make the difference, a huge difference. Like if everyone on your team memorized all their Bible verses, it could be more points than if you'd won every game through the week. So it was a huge deal. Now, none of the kids on every team memorized all the verses, because they would, like if they did every single one, they'd get bonus points. Some of the kids did, some didn't. But I just really like this dynamic, how it turned out that, we make that so valuable in trying to win. And this was the day before the last day of camp. And we handed out the t-shirts that day so that kids could have a chance to sign each other's t-shirts. Every morning we'd have stretches. Here's Kostya and Dasha. Sorry, Dasha. They're leading the basically morning cardio and stretches to get people warmed up. This is the Gaga pit. We had a Gaga ball tournament, and that was a huge hit. Everybody had a ton of fun. This was one of the first days when we did a water relay race where the team had 4 different people with different superhero costumes. So one here you have the boxer. She has to throw the sponge. She can't cross this line. Then you'd have Batman. He had to fill up a bottle with water and throw it to the guy. Then this guy had to catch the sponge or catch the bottle, pour it into the bucket on his head, and then dump it out into the blue bucket and get the floating froggy to fall out. I think this one was hilarious because he had the frog on the edge of the bucket like 8 times, and he would pour water in and the frog would not come out. It was terrible. And this was the funniest one. This they had to run in these flippers and carry water in this snorkel thing and dump it in the bucket. This one was caramel apples on a string that they had to hold with their toe. This didn't turn out right. I should have had the caramel probably in the fridge. And then the string was pulling down, so we kept having to hold it up. So next time we'll know how to do that better. This was a game called Candysaurus Rex, where we wrapped them in saran wrap, and then they had to bend down like dinosaurs and see if they could get the most candy. And this is girls making bracelets with paracord. And then a couple of the guys and a couple of pastors took the kids, taught them how to shoot with air guns. And then this was an ice cream eating contest. So our goal here, the kids are going through so much. A lot of them lost their homes. They were going through hell. We just wanted to bring them out in the nature and the beautiful place and just help them have a lot of fun. So some people thought no, this is the time for humanitarian aid. Well, so what? We all just only send humanitarian aid and the kids sit here just living through the tragedy? Why not entertain them? Why not bless them? Why not help them have some taste of a childhood while this is all going on? I don't know. In my opinion, that's huge. So these are just a couple cute pictures. Kostya, he's a friend from the church. He has actually staff at the day center, and he loves animals. The rocket found a nice stick. This was Kolya. Kolya is a husband of Lera's childhood friend, and he's done a lot of camp ministry with the Baptist church in Odessa. And he came out and helped us with our camp. And here he taught the boys how to make bows and arrows out of some PVC pipe and line. Here they are practicing. And then we did a big tug of war. This rope cost me like $100, but it's worth it. It's a huge rope and it will last for years. For years and years we can play tug of war. Now I took this pool and we actually tried to put a bunch of gelatin in it and make jello. It didn't work out nearly how we'd hoped. So next year I'll probably just make a mud pit or something, or maybe some kind of foam pit or something like that. I'd like to have a mud pit with a big like trunk that is sanded and two guys sit on or and joust each other with pillows or something like this. Try to knock the other guy down into the mud. So this was a lot of fun. Then we did one table game tournament, which was throw avocado. So there's throw burrito and throw avocado. This was like a hungry hippo game where they got to pick up the candies with straws. And then there was 3 different nights when we did a movie night where we went through the Narnia Chronicles. So we, just set up the big screen near the fire pit, and then Anna would make some awesome buttery popcorn. Just a couple of the animals. This ministry is a different ministry. They're from further east Ukraine, and they came out to spend a couple days teaching the kids. I think it was like 4 or 5 hours for 2 days, might have been 3 days, how to just work with wood. And they had these different little projects where they made IQ puzzles, tic-tac-toe. This one is a little just block of wood with a place to put a small candle. And this is Sophia. She actually made this, painted it yellow and blue, and gave it to me as a gift. It's around here somewhere. I don't remember where, but it was really encouraging because it was like the 3rd day of camp, and she ran up to me, and she's so excited and full of joy. I said, Jacoby, this camp is amazing. So, and then this is Nastya. So both these girls go to our church, and they also go to the day center regularly. And they both, like 2 weeks ago, asked me if we're doing our camp again. And they said, if you do, I'll be the first one to sign up. So we're still not 100% decided if we're doing it this summer because I'm supposed to be learning Ukrainian. And if I have to plan another camp, it will take so much time. But I think we are going to do one. So pretty soon I might be reaching out to people to see if they'd like to donate for camp or if they would like to come help with the camp. So this was beginning the big hike day. So our hiking guide, Losha, we wanted him to take them on like a 6 to 8 hour hike, I think it was. And he took them on a trail and it ended up being all day. They didn't get back until like 10 p.m. It was crazy and people were so tired. Most of the kids loved it. They were like, yeah, we did it, but the adults were just like dying. So here you can see they're going up through different terrain, and there was one area where it was just like huge rock after huge rock after huge rock. I actually didn't go on the hike because I had to drive into the city, which is like an hour and 20-minute drive, or hour and a half, and go buy some stuff. We needed some supplies. So, and what was tough about it was a day that was can't remember, Day of Independence, and Russia was dropping a lot of bombs, and when that happens, the city sirens go off and all the big stores close down and they don't let people go inside. So I was stopped 3 different times in the parking lot of the department store, unable to buy what I had gone there to buy. And then I went in and I was actually had everything at the cash register, and I was on like the last few items for her to ring up, and then the sirens went off and she didn't let me finish. I had to leave. So that was that. I brought my wooden chess set there, and that was a huge hit. A lot of the guys, especially this guy and his brother, and him as well, they love to play chess. This is Indy. She's from the States. She came out. She'd been doing some other humanitarian work in Ukraine. We got connected through a mutual friend, and she decided to come check our camp out for just a couple days because she was had plans to go all over Ukraine, but she ended up staying for the whole camp. And she knows about training horses. So here she's like, there were these horses that just wander around out there, and sometimes they would stop by and visit our camp. So she's just doing a little bit of horse whispering stuff here. Some signing the t-shirts near the last day. On the last day, we played Family Feud. So on the first day, I had every camper fill out a questionnaire with like 20 questions. And then we chose, I don't remember how many, like six of the best ones. And we put together a Family Feud. I want to build like a wooden one where I can just flip every block. So I like put the answer on the back and then I could just flip it. Can even put like lights on it or something. Anyways, for the future, I have these little hand buzzers here, and then this is a buzzer. So also, one thing we did, if you see this dog right here and you see this lizard right here, every morning I would give a clue where around the camp area we'd hidden a different animal. And I told them that for each animal you find, they would get a prize like a candy, they would get some points, and then they would be able to use it on the final day to give them an advantage in the game. So basically, if they had one of these animals, if they had an answer wrong, they could pay the animal and it would give them another chance. And this is Ola. She was actually the one who, she understands English and Ukrainian, so she got to go read through all the answers and compile the statistics for the Family Feud game. This is a rubber chicken. That was one of the animals. And now, these pictures I really like because this is actually during the Family Feud game, you see the teams discussing what their answer is going to be. And if you look at some of their expressions, this one was a question about historical figures, Ukrainian figures, and there was only one answer left on the board to like steal all the points, and it was a kind of obscure answer, and somehow they got it. It was amazing. It was, I think it helped them win the game actually. So this is Kalush. If you know, he won the Eurovision, and he was one of the animals that we hid. This is another team discussing their answer, and then we had an issue with the kids wandering off down to the water, sometimes unsupervised. So we had a rule that they couldn't go there unsupervised, but it would happen anyway. So Teresa volunteered, and it looks like Kolya went with them, and I think Lita went too, to take them for a couple hours to the swimming hole. And just here you have the Lord looking down upon Kolya through the trees. This is the swimming hole. It's not super deep. It's like, gets navel high, probably in the deepest part. But on a hot summer day, it's great. On the final night, we had a huge neon blacklight party, so we gave away a bunch of these glow bracelets, and we had neon paint, and I also had neon spray paint that I'd been using for lines in the grass when we played games. So we put up 3 black lights around the campfire and to let people paint their faces, and some people took the paint and put hand marks on their shirts. This was Anna the cook. She was a huge help at the camp. She prepared the shopping list, all the meals. She oversaw all of that. She also helped a lot before the camp, calling parents of the kids and with a lot of contacts, just making sure all that was in order. And that night we roasted marshmallows, and we made s'mores, I believe. And just some more pictures of, I put this picture twice. So here she is eating her marshmallow. And then we played Chubby Bunny. And this was hilarious because this kid, on the first day when we had the water game, he was Batman with the Batman costume, and he had a Batman shirt and like Batman shorts. So all week long we called him Batman. Right here, he's like, hold on a minute, I got this. And this is Arthur. He actually goes to the day center here in the city. He won the Chubby Bunny, and I think he won the ice cream eating contest also. He just has this like elastic cheeks. So kind of an unfair genetic advantage there. And then that night was when we announced all the winning teams, and we gave away the prizes. And we had these t-shirts made, which were a thank you gift to all the staff and the team leaders that had come and helped. And we gave them chocolates and t-shirts, and everybody got stickers. And I think, I'm not sure, but this might have been him cheering because their team won. And yeah, then the final day we took the group picture. So it was an awesome camp, and Lord willing, we'll get to do many more that are even better, more organized. And then while we were there at the camp, we had to stay for like 3 more days and tear everything down. Lita went into town with Indy and Teresa, who'd come from the States, and also Ola, who'd come from Lviv. And I guess, yeah, Anna the cook, she's here with them also. This is us getting back to our flat and unloading everything into my garage, which is still hasn't been organized yet. I made a great headway on it, but through the winter, it's been super cold. So I just left everything there unfinished, and as soon as it warms up here in a few weeks, I'll get down there and finish organizing all that. So then, after camp, Lera and I drove to Odessa for her brother's wedding, and here it is. This is our new brother-in-law. It's her older brother, and he's got like his little kalush outfit. So yeah, and then the next day after the wedding, we went to their family and had lunch with them. So that was a nice time. And then Lera went to Poland because she had, these are friends from when the first year I met Lera at her church. And so we had, left that church after being there for about a year. And many of these girls she hadn't seen in years. Chats with them now and then. But this was like a friend reunion that they got together in Krakow and spent a few days together. So that was cool. And then I went down to see our property. This goes to my business partner. He's been the project manager overseeing the construction of this. And this is our first cabin. And this is right next to a stream, which is down here, and that turns and joins another stream. And then like 1 or 2 kilometers down, it flows into the Cheremosh. So it's a pretty nice area. We put in a chen out here out back, and then probably like a gazebo and a deck. It's not finished yet, but it's getting much closer, ready to start renting it out soon. And we plan to build at least 4 of these on this property, maybe 5 or 6. So Sansanich went with me, and we went down there and just checked out our property and saw the area. Then after camp, my elbows were giving me a lot of pain, so I went and had a cortisone shot in this elbow, had to wear the cast for 6 weeks. Then I got a cortisone shot in the other elbow, wore the cast for 6 weeks. And now my elbows feel worse. It's a long story. I won't go into that, but I'm really hoping that I'm able to that I'm not just damaged for life, because it's not fun. This was a beautiful area, about an hour and a half drive from Frankivsk, up in the mountains in the fall time. It was absolutely gorgeous. There's a lot of cool caves up there and stuff. Shortly after that, I drove up to Rivne because my friend Sansanich moved back there from Frankivsk, and this was his son, who I brought a dinosaur who he's feeding flowers here. This is Sansanich Jr., awesome little kid. And then this was me. I think it was my first time preaching. I'm trying to remember what I preached on the first time. At the moment, I don't remember. But then Igor asked if I wanted to do a series on the 10 Commandments. So I've done 2 messages on that as well. And then this was the second time I preached there. And then Pastor Volodya asked if I would want to come there, since I'm preaching at this church once a month, if I would come there the next week and preach the same sermon. So I'm actually going there tomorrow, and we go there and I preach a sermon, and then after church in the afternoon, first we have lunch, and then we do an English club for the kids in that village. So this is the new church that they're building there, and it's actually done now. It looks better. I don't think I have the final pictures, but that's where they're meeting now for service. Lera once a week is going to the day center to teach English to a group of kids. Sometimes there's 3, sometimes there's 6, but most of the time there's like a group of 4 or 5. And the reason they have such bad lighting here is because sometimes the power is off, so we have to use alternative sources of light just to keep life going. This was for Lera's birthday in December. We drove up to Lviv and saw the Avatar movie. The sirens were going off, so everyone was forced to wait outside the mall. And then when they finally opened the doors, this is just the mass of people going inside. I started having like once a month a poker night at my house, and we basically pay for 100 hryvnia buy-in, which is like $2.50. But like I said, average daily pay for an entry-level job here is like 600 hryvnias in a day. So, I mean, it's basically it's probably more like we're $10 to them or something like this as far as purchasing power. And so anyways, we have fun. Once a month we just have these poker tournaments. I really like poker, but We're not playing for like big money, but we play for some money just so at least we have somewhat of a real game dynamic going on with some stakes. This is a Christmas photo from this Christmas. We didn't really do much. We didn't even put our tree up, even though every year we just wrap our tree in saran wrap and leave the ornaments on. So the next year, all we got to do is take the plastic off, bend the branches down, and we're good to go. We just leave the lights and the ornaments on there. And but we didn't even mess with that this year. We didn't do much of anything. It's just been, a fast-paced year with so many transitions. Here we're having friends Roman and Sergey over for dinner. And then the church actually is in the process of buying this new, much larger building, because the building that they currently use for the kids in the day center is pretty small, especially considering how many kids they have coming in there. So I was going there and I was preparing lunch for the group of guys that were working there. I was trying not to do too much physical work because of my elbows, but then later I ended up helping put the ceilings in, which wasn't too bad, but I don't think it helped my elbows much. This was our first English club in the village, Pidhaichiki. We were expecting maybe like 10 kids. We didn't know how many would come, but we had a pretty good turnout there for being in a small village. This was one of the discussion groups after the presentation, and this was the second discussion group with the kids with lower level English. So we'll be doing that, Lord willing, every month. And also recently I started learning Ukrainian. And I first started going through this book, which I got the PDF of and just started printing it up. And then I found Duolingo, and I really liked Duolingo because I could just do it on the go at night in my bed. I could practice. I could wake up in the morning and start practicing Ukrainian right away. And I basically went through the complete Ukrainian Duolingo course in 40 days, which was a huge disappointment because I want, at least 10,000 words for fluency. And so there was a guy where I was always competing for number one, on Duolingo you get points. And every week I got number one in my group and then advanced to the next league. And one week a guy was competing with me and we were neck and neck very close. And I started thinking, is this guy a bot? I'm not sure. But he followed me, so I followed him back. And then later on I would get notification that he had learned 2,000 words. So I Googled online and it said that Duolingo has 2,000 Ukrainian words. But, I can earn these different badges, and one of them is for 1,500 words. And I was very close to 1,500 words, but I hadn't got the badge yet. But then I completed the whole course. So I'm confused. I even wrote them about it. They never answered me. I'm asking, why does it say there's 2,000 Ukrainian words? Why did this guy named Cookie have 2,000 words? How did I complete the course having not even 1,500 words? So I don't know, but I'm disappointed in Duolingo. They need more words. Get on it. All right, this was Tanya organized. She's basically the director of the day center called Nazareth, and they did a day camp for a week long that Lita was there every day helping out with. I don't know what they're doing here, some dancing to some song. And every day I would stop in there to visit. Not every day, but the days that I did stop in there to visit, I just noticed that Lita was able to get so much closer to so many more of the kids. There was always some girls hugging on her and stuff. And they asked me if I could come in one day and do something for the boys. So I came in and I gave them a knot tying course. And then they went out afterwards and they used the knots to tie up to some building and pulled a piece of the building off or something like that. So anyways, they seem to really enjoy that course. More recently, this man, he is a guy that did counseling for policemen and military with PTSD for many, many years, like 30 years. He also worked in law, but they're starting not a project, but an ongoing project in Ukraine for group therapy for people struggling with PTSD. And Lita was there translating for him. They had a small conference for 3 days in Pidhaichiki. And so We actually found this course very interesting, and I think that's my last picture. So this was just a few days ago. Leda came home. She was pretty tired because so it was Saturday night. She got, oh, I should have put a picture of that. Saturday night, she received her diploma for her 3-year education in biblical counseling. And then we thought it was an hour and a half meeting. It was like a Zoom meeting celebration. It ended up being like over 4 hours. And we were supposed to practice going through my sermon that night because she translates for me. And she's still getting used to speaking Ukrainian as her first language. Before, it was always Russian. So it helps her a lot to go through and be able to look up words and phrases she doesn't know or doesn't know as well. But we didn't have a chance to. So we had to get up early in the morning. And then because I guess we both felt like I need to sleep. I need to get to sleep. So we both couldn't sleep that night. We were up till nearly 3 a.m. And then we got up around 7:45, started practicing for the sermon, then go preach the sermon, then drive to Petaichiki. Then she jumped right into translating. And on the drive there, she's going through the words, the papers that they had sent her to translate for this. And so, anyways, I was completely exhausted, but she was probably crazy exhausted. So anyway, yeah, I think that's all the pictures that I have here. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation. I hope that this helps you understand a little more about our ministry. I really want to do these summer camps every year. Really, my dream is to buy land there, build a more permanent camp location. I have a full pitch deck on this. I just haven't actually founded the LLC and jumped into this yet. I have plans for possibly starting a baseball league in the future. I want to start a big online theology teaching hub. Lately, I've been researching different online AI tools that can expedite workflows dramatically for like creating Christian audiobooks, creating audiobook summaries, creating question and answer videos, and even simple things like quote cards and stuff. So I want to build a multilingual theology teaching hub online, leveraging a lot of these new AI tools that are out there. So I've been pretty fascinated with that and kind of looking into that lately. So yeah, that's where we are right now. I'm hoping to be fluent in Ukrainian in under 2 years. Would really appreciate prayer for that. Pray for our safety. Pray for the safety of Ukraine. Yeah, just if you have any questions, if you ever want to come out and visit us so you can see firsthand what God is doing here, please don't hesitate to reach out. I really appreciate you sticking with me through this long video if you're still here. So God bless you. We love you. I hope to come to the States in the near future. Hopefully I'll get to see you in person. Till next time.